Hi, I'm Lisette Rodriguez.
And I'm Jeremiah Rodriguez.
And this is
Speaking Life Podcast, where we're inspiring hearts
and transforming minds.
Hey. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Today's episode is going to be about failure.
Here we go again, guys.
Failure. It's a phenomenal topic because I think when people talk about failure, they look at it with a negative perspective or a negative lens, right? But failure can actually be a good thing, no?
It can be an amazing thing. I always say it, and I'll say it again. The best university you can ever sign up for is the University of Failure.
Failure will teach. I've heard it said before that failure will teach you things that winning can't teach.
Absolutely.
Failure will teach you things that winning can't teach, right? And one of those things is a learning opportunity, right? I think if you get into this habit of winning, it's fun to win, right? I mean, you always want to win. There's happiness in winning and stuff like that. But in order to win even that much more, I think you have to enter a state of failure. You have to experience what failure is like, so that way you can, I guess, elevate yourself to another level because now you know what not to do.
Wait a minute, but let's take it a step back, because I also believe that not only do you win, or not only do you learn in your winning season, and not only do you learn in your losing season, or what we consider failure, but I believe that even in our winning season, it depends on your mindset. Your mindset ought to be, even though I won, what can I do better for the next?
Well, that's a leadership mindset. Not everybody has that mindset.
Because if you don't have that mindset, and you only have that mindset in a failure situation, you're still missing out.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm trying to say that we need to grab a hold of the failure concept, yes, but also the winning concept. In both of them, it's a need for us to be able to think, what can we do better for next time? So although the School of Failure is a university that teaches us a lot, also when we win, we have to sit back and say, okay, we won and that was great, but now what can we do better for the next?
Exactly. And just like Kobe Bryant said, and I said this once before, that, he said, I either win or I learn. Or either way, I'm winning, but I'm still learning. Why? Because I'm learning what not to do for next time, what to do for next time, right? And the learning opportunity with failure. Failure exposes weaknesses or gaps in knowledge, skills, or strategy. By reflecting on why something didn't work, we gain insights that we might not have otherwise discovered. These lessons help us improve and grow.
Absolutely.
So, failure is a big opportunity, I think, for growth itself. It's just genuine opportunity. That's why we call it, well, you call it the University of Failure. Why? Because there's no better experience like experience.
But I think it's like you said earlier, the word failure has become so taboo. So the harsh truth is that no one really wants to be identified with it. Nobody wants to be identified as failure. Yeah. As an individual, as a wife, as a mother, as a caregiver, as a sister, as a pastor, I don't want to associate who I am with the word failure.
That's true.
Because it's about the look, it's about the perspective, right? So when you say the word failure, many have it as a taboo, like, oh, I don't want anyone to ever know that I failed in life. I don't want anyone to ever know that during all my life, I didn't always succeed. And I think that's failure right there in itself.
Yeah.
Because although I don't want my name associated with failure, I have to sit down and truly explain to someone else that my failure is what propelled me to my winning season.
Yeah.
And see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I completely see what you're saying. And I think that's such an important thing, because a lot of times we hear about people's winning season and, oh, I'm winning in this area and winning in this area. But most people want to know, like, how did you get there? I'm glad you're winning. I'm happy you're winning. I'm happy that you're at the mountaintop. But what did it take? What price did you pay? And what failures did you have along the way? Because I want to make sure, as I'm enduring my process, what to look out for and what's inevitable.
Well,
right?
Here's the thing. Once again, because nobody wants to be associated with the word failure, I see a lot of people giving testimonies or telling their own story about, hey, so I ended up, I landed this job, and although I wasn't qualified, they hired me, and now I'm making 6 figures, and, or, hey, I finally got a house. So they want you to celebrate the fact that they got a house without telling you what they had to endure to be able to get the house.
Oh, absolutely.
So really, you're looking for someone to give you a pat on the shoulder, but you don't want anyone to know your story. And there's still people out there struggling and looking at you and still asking the question, so how did you get that house?
Yeah.
So how did you succeed? Because it's like you said earlier, what we want to do is draw a map. And in that map, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
You are going to have failed once, twice, 3 times, 100 times.
Yeah.
So it's not about the amount of times that failed. It's about, at the end of the story, letting people know how you were able to make it on the other side. Because in failure, you have 2 choices.
Yeah.
Either you die or you learn and move on, right? So failure, I know the word failure itself has been tainted by many, but really I've learned how to embrace failure. I'm proud of my failure, although I never set out to fail. There's a difference.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you go ahead and be reckless.
Nah, not at all.
And let your failing lead you somewhere. No, I'm not talking about that. I always set out to win. I always set out to do the right thing. I always set out to have a positive conversation. However, sometimes what I set out to do, I wasn't able to accomplish it the way I wanted to accomplish it. So I ended up failing. But it was that failure, or it was that failing in that situation that helped me learn a lesson that no one else was going to be able to teach me.
Yeah.
You see, so I think while failure comes at a cost, it's great to be able to share that with others in hopes that they won't have to commit that same mistake, although they're going to inevitably commit some type of mistake, but not that same mistake. Let's save them some time along the journey and let them know how they can succeed and get over this little stone, right? This little, rock along the way.
And I think you hit the nail on the head that failure is a part of your story, right? Like, I think we hear time and time again that, share your story because it's a part of your testimony, but it's about sharing those failures that make your testimony that much stronger. And it's like you said, like, you don't want to intentionally, I'm going to fail on purpose. That's not the intent, but it's inevitable that you may fail in the area because you may lack the knowledge, you may lack the skill, but showing somebody else like your true self and saying, this is how I got out of it, right? I think for me, the way I was comfortable with sharing, I've always been, as you know, I've always been a written book, like an open book, sorry. I've always been an open book. So when I started with the young adults at Hope, I was very honest and open with them, just to help them to understand I'm not perfect either. Just because I'm your leader, now I'm your pastor, just because I am that does not mean I'm not going to fall on my face. That doesn't mean I'm not going to mess up. That doesn't mean that I haven't had a past where I can't relate to you. That's not what that means. This life is about progressing, it's about a progressive walk, not a perfection one, right? So for the biggest story for me was school, going to Seton Hall University where Vanessa graduated, Leah graduated, now Becca graduated, Marcus is on his way to graduate. I didn't finish school. So for me, like, that was in my mind, I felt like I was a failure because I didn't finish school. And that was the biggest thing for me that I didn't share with anybody because I kind of like buried it. And that was a failure I didn't know how to explain. And though my siblings are doing their thing and they're graduating and I'm cheering them on, they're number one cheerleader, for me, it kind of hurt a little bit because had I not messed up or had I been more focused, I would have excelled in school. And it wasn't that I wasn't smart or I didn't have the education or the tools. It's just my lack of focus. But in doing so and dropping out of school, I felt like a failure, right? So, but I understood after a while that didn't define who I am or who I could be or who God can use me for, right? So I had a level with them like, guys, these are my flaws. These are my scars. Like, this is something I deal with internally, and this is how I'm dealing with it now, but this is all part of my story. Just because I didn't finish school, that doesn't mean I can't succeed. That doesn't mean I can't impart into you. But now I can show you, like, listen, I've been down this road. You don't want to go down this road.
Right,
you know, like, and I've been fortunate enough to be blessed enough to have job after job, and every job I'm elevated in. But, you know, failure
That's
was
not
part
a
of my
whole
story.
story.
No,
Right.
failure,
It's not
and
every
the story is not even over. I'm only 30. The story's not even over. So it's just like, it's just adding more and more and more. So just showing them, like, this is what failure is. And you know what? During that process, it built resilience. I think failure builds resilience. And I think if you can compare somebody in the Bible, be Joseph, right? And I wouldn't even say that he failed necessarily, but he had to go through a process where most may consider like failure. Like, man, I failed. Or David's a perfect example, right? David, he failed time and time again. David was everything. David was a hoe. David was a murderer. David was a terrible friend.
Nice.
Let's be honest. But David was all these things. But guess what? He was still known as a man after God's own heart, and that's always been my prayer. Even today, like, I know I'm gonna mess up, God, but I always want to lean towards you and not shy away from you. If I mess up, and I'm going to mess up, I want to lean into you and not stray away from you, because I understand it's inevitable, but I understand that when I repent and I come to you wholeheartedly and, like, show you my scars and put my cards on the table, you're going to help me out. You're going to turn my mess into a message. And I think that's what people need to begin to understand. And that's how failure works sometimes. And failure can actually work for your good in the end.
Right. Well, there's two important points that I want to bring to the table. And the first one being, your failure or your experience might be the very thing that others are seeking. They're looking for an answer, and you are that answer.
Yeah.
So if you keep the season of failure to yourself, you're hiding an answer from someone that's seeking it. That's one.
Absolutely.
Number two, failure always has a way of surfacing.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right? You know, people start talking about it, or people that knew you as you were growing up, or people that knew you in that season. So here's another thing that happens. You do so good and you try so hard to build yourself to be this person, right? With character, with grace, with humility. And later on down the line, when you make a name for yourself, they end up finding out how many times you failed and how you failed.
Yeah.
Now, you're tainting their perspective on what could have been a blessing in one season is now causing them to look at you in a different light in another season.
Yeah.
Now, the lesson they should have learned from you, they're not willing to learn from you. Because now, late in the game, they're finding out that you were a failure when you, from the beginning, from the onset, should have just exposed that and said, listen, this is where I failed. However, let me let you know where I am currently.
Yeah.
So I think we try so hard to hide our mistakes. And I get it. Some of our mistakes, some of our past are shameful. They're embarrassing. I get it. I've had my share as well. Right? And I guess we'll talk about that on another episode. But I'm grateful for those moments, because now in hindsight, when I look back, God used even those moments that were failing moments by my choice, right? By my decisions, by the steps I decided to take. Those were failure moments. God took that, and you know how they say, oh, well, you know, he makes a message out of a mess. You know, God takes that and he turns it around for our good.
Yeah.
Right? So it now not only blesses us, but it blesses others that are to come in contact with us.
Yeah.
So if we only could see the value that God has already placed within us, and know that no matter what we have done and no matter where we find ourselves right now in life, it doesn't stop or nullify the fact that God is still going to use you. Listen, before you even messed up, he knew you were going to mess up, but he still trusted you enough to deposit greatness within you. So in trying to develop greatness, you have to be able to expose those areas that you failed in. It's almost like when you were a kid and you ran and you got a scab. You know, immediately, because we wanted to protect the wound, I would put a Band-Aid on your knee, right? And I would cover it. But the time would come where I would have to uncover it so that the wound could heal.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And many of us are okay with covering it and not letting that wound heal. And when you don't let that wound heal, when you don't let that season of failure heal, how can you possibly move on to your next? It's almost like it's a prerequisite for where God is trying to take you. I know it sounds crazy, right?
No, it's true though. It's true.
It's a prerequisite to where God is trying to take you. So in all areas of life, I don't care what kind of degree you graduated with or didn't graduate with, our steps are ordered by the Lord. And if we know that our steps are ordered, even in our seasons of failing, those steps are also ordered and they were accounted for. So what am I trying to say? There's no reason for you to hide them.
No, there's no reason. I think you said you couldn't be an answer to somebody's problem, right? And that's something I always told the young people. Like, this life is not about you, but it's always about the next man. And a lot of times what I would try to tell them is like, share your story. And I get for some people it's more of a trust issue, or you don't want people collecting your information. But at the end of the day, using discernment, sharing your story can help somebody else. Now that person may not participate in the group, but maybe afterwards will say, hey, I heard what you said, and I'm actually going through that currently. And now I can say, well, yeah, this is how I got through it. This is the blueprint. You may have to put your own flavor on it, but guess what? At least I was bold enough to share the story with you and give you part of the answer.
Right, so we are the map to someone else getting help. And when you don't see that, you will selfishly try to hide your failure in hopes of becoming someone greater in their eyes without letting them know the true, authentic you and what it took to make you. So actually, I don't want to call you a faker, but I want to call you...
But in some way, you are being fake.
An imitator.
Yeah, you are being fake because like you're not showing the whole picture. Now, granted, I know you got to use discernment sometimes when you're trying to show certain people, because certain people knowing when to show or to knowing when to show a person your vulnerabilities is having that discernment, right? Because you can't share yourself with everybody. Let's just be very clear. But those people who need it and you know they need it, I think you do have to be an open book to them and say, this is what I've dealt with. This is what I'm currently dealing with. And I think we need to develop a healthy mindset of what does failure look like. Because I heard Dr. Darius Daniel say, you'll always behave in a way that's consistent with the way you see yourself. Right? So if I see myself as a failure and that's all I see, you're going to behave as such. But if I see myself as successful, I'm going to behave as such. And guess what comes with that? What comes with that is me showing you, here are my scars. And this is how I've reached success. Right? A lot of people want to get to the top of the mountain, but don't, like I said in the beginning of the episode, they don't want to pay the cost. Well, guess what? Paying the cost, especially in our story, is losing homes. It's losing cars. It's being separated here and there, right? But it's all built up. You know, just like I said, the hope this past Sunday is God's producing his own movie right here.
Right, absolutely.
Right? God's producing his own movie right here. And he knows the beginning, he knows the middle, and he knows the end. But it's all part of the story. So if you're leaving parts of the story, that's like going to a movie and saying, all right, well, he's a superhero and then he helps. What happened in between? Where's the detail? How did they get there? Or what caused it? Now you're robbing people who are paying to see the movie of what they had in their mind.
Of the movie.
Yeah, their whole imagination and like everything they read possibly in a book. You know what I mean? Like you're robbing them now. Now you're not giving them the full story. Now they're just like, well, I'm never going to see this again. I'm never going to buy this again. It's the same with your story. Like in order to be the best representation of God, we have to share our story. We have to share our story. I think you said in the Bible study that we have to be God's best representation, right? And the way we look at that is we're God's product here on earth.
Right.
We're God's product, right? And
we have to be proof that it works.
Exactly. And there's a manual, correct?
Right.
There's a manual to it. Now being a product, like God's writing on you, and let's be clear about that too. God doesn't need your help. Let's just be very clear. But the manufacturer always relies on its product in order for people to buy into it. It's just like Apple, right? Like the Apple iPhone. Everybody has an iPhone. Why? Because it works well.
They heard about what it can do.
They heard about what it can do, and they read the manual, and they understand everything that it can do and how easy it is. So everybody taps into the product. But if you're not representing God well, the lost won't tap in. So like you have to show your story.
I mean, that's always gotten to me too. Like, how do you walk around talking about this God that's able,
Yeah.
but you've never failed?
Yeah.
So here's the problem. If somebody's coming to me and talking to me about restoration, I have to have experienced restoration,
Yeah.
which means at some point in time, I must have fallen from grace
Yeah, absolutely.
in order to be restored. So we find ourselves always talking about where we are and how good we are and how blessed we are and where we currently find ourselves and what we're doing and how we're doing it and you know, but we never want to go back.
The young adults and I have a term for that. It's called Christianese.
Oh, okay. Sounds good to me.
A lot of the times when we're trying to get the real honest answer, and I believe Isaiah said it one time when we were doing a panel, he said, please cut the Christianese out. I want the real. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear, oh, I'm highly favored. I'm the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. Though that is true.
That is true.
That
That's
is
nice.
true. That
That's
is
nice,
true.
but
really, how are you really doing?
Right.
Like, where did your failures take you that now you believe that? You know what I mean? Like, cutting the Christianese out. Let's cut the fluff out of the way. Let's get straight to the point. What really caused the failure? How did you get there? And how did you get yourself out?
And sometimes failure is a great thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about you mentioned Dr. Darius Daniels. I'm thinking about something he said in one of the classes when he spoke about, because, you know, we know he has multiple
Yes,
campuses. He's
absolutely.
very well known right now, right? But he said, I wish the things I did in the beginning of my ministry, I wish I wouldn't have done many of them.
Yeah.
Because I hurt people along the way. I did many mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm looking back because now we're seeing the full product, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, you? But the reality is, he is where he is now because he learned early on
Yeah.
what not to do,
Yeah.
right? So what if your failing season is preparing you for the greatest season of your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What if, you know, so you're there beating yourself up. Well, I never finished school, or I started this and I didn't finish it, and I really wanted to do this, but now so many people are doing it, or you know, I wanted to do this, but now somebody. Listen, just be who God created you to be and follow the desires of your heart,
Yeah.
because many times we think it's us, it's really God in us, and inevitably you are going to fail. I haven't met one person yet that has never failed.
Yeah.
Not one. I mean, I love my mentors. I love my pastor. You know, I haven't met a person yet that doesn't have a story,
Yeah.
that hasn't failed along the way, where I have not become richer because of their failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I learned
Yeah.
from their moves what not to do. So that already saved me time and advanced me a little further along the game.
Yeah.
So what took them twice as long is not taking me that long because I learned from them what not to do. And in essence, yes, I'm still going to make mistakes, but they're saving me time. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. Many people go around, they don't know who to talk to. Have you shared your experience with it? Because, you know, there's something about you having the experience in regards to something that I'm going through.
And you acting like you never failed, you actually not only are you doing the person a disservice, but you're doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely.
Right? So like my favorite motivational speaker, Eric Thomas, he forever speaks about his failures, which is him being homeless, him eating out of trash cans, right? Now he's the number one motivational speaker in the world. Why? Because he's so relatable that even all types of people can relate to him, from the high school to the prison to even in even in the business world. People all relate to him. Why? Because he's true and authentic. But he always starts off with his failure. He said, "I ate this way. This is how I came, and this is what built me." Sometimes he says, "Sometimes I eat food off the floor. Sometimes because I don't know if I'm ever going to get back to that." Or if I ever have to get back to that. So I never want to forget where I came from. Why? Because it built me into who I am today.
Yeah, so that's where I think people miss, you
Yeah.
know. It's not that I'm proud of my failures. Please don't misunderstand me. I am not proud of my failures, but I'm proud of what they developed.
Yeah. Yeah,
Make
absolutely.
sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not proud of how I failed, but I'm proud of what it developed in me to be greater, to be better, to teach me what not to do. And now I get the honor and the privilege to be able to help others by letting them know my past failures in hoping that they won't commit the same ones.
And Michael Jordan said it like this. He said, I succeeded because I failed.
Oh, that's good.
Very simple, sweet,
That's it.
straight to the point. I succeeded because I failed.
That's it.
6 championships, right? Known as the greatest basketball player of all time. He said, I succeeded because I failed.
And, you know, it's okay when others don't understand your journey, especially while you're in the midst of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? So sometimes when you're in that season of failing, sometimes when you're on your journey, you know, we want others to understand. And sometimes it's not the time for them to understand. Process it. Finish going through it. Develop yourself through it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And come out on the other side.
Yeah.
To then say, oh, by the way, I remember once in one of our situations, I was talking to a friend of mine and I'm like, I really want to explain to people that, you know, they must be looking at us as a family and saying, oh, here they go again. And I'm like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, we had a legit reason as to what was happening in that time. And I remember thinking, like, I want to explain to people why we're going through this again, right? And I remember the Holy Spirit telling me, stay silent. Stay silent.
Yeah.
Because there's a time, so when you're in the midst of it, that's not the time to talk about it.
No.
You know, it's when you come out through the other side that you can look back in hindsight and say, because when you're going through it, the truth is you don't understand why.
Your clarity is not there either.
Yeah, you don't understand why.
Yeah.
So until you finish going through it, you really can't talk about it because it's not going to benefit anyone. As a matter of fact, in speaking to someone too early can cause you a delay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, I don't need yes people around me,
Nah.
especially at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So when the Holy Spirit ministered to that to me and said, be silent, I said, okay. But it also helped me see how worried I was about the perspective of others looking in.
Yeah.
And I had to be okay in my failing season.
Absolutely.
And now in hindsight, I look back and I am so grateful that he trusted me with trouble.
And you told me, I think you texted me this past Sunday, like your testimony, like telling your testimony at the right time can be
Wow.
most effective. At the right time. At the right time. Not the wrong time, at the right time can be extremely effective. Telling it at the wrong time, you can do more damage than you can do good, actually.
Right. And it's almost like the prophet, right?
Yeah.
You know, when God gives us a word of prophecy, you know, the word is subject to the prophet.
Yeah.
What does that mean? You get to decide when you're going to release that. So you need to be very careful that you release it on the right time.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, that you don't cause more damage than good. So there's a time and there's a season for everything. But if that's you, I want to encourage you. If you're currently going through your failing season, I want to encourage you. There is a way out and you're going to be all that much better for it.
Yeah.
But if it's a season that you already went through, but you're holding on to shame, listen, let it go. Let it go and become the authentic you that God has called you to be. Your testimony is only going to bless someone else.
Yeah.
Go ahead and be the blessing that God has called you to be.
Yeah. Don't let failure hold you back whatsoever. It's just know it's part of the story, but it's not the end of the story. It's just a simple part of the story to get you to the greatness that you know God created you to be. Whether you're a man or woman, you're king or queen that God created you to be. And everything that God created you to be, he knew failure will be part of the story. So please just keep going. Don't ever stop.
And for all those that are saying out there, well, you don't understand, you know, I've been through the same cycle 15 times. Listen, God is not going to let you go through a cycle until you learn your lesson in the cycle. So if you're that person that says, you know, I keep on going around the same mountain, then there's something there that you haven't learned yet. So God is doing you a service by allowing you to go around that mountain yet again so that you can learn what you need to learn to become greater. So listen, embrace the process, embrace failure. is going to be a part of your story, but it's not going to be the story.
That's good. That's good.
Amen?
Failure is always a part of the process. That's it.
So listen, I hope this episode was a blessing to you. And if it was, please make sure that you subscribe, you share with someone. Listen, send it to your uncle, your cousin, your coworker, whoever you think that this is going to be a blessing to, because we're just trying to reach as many people as we can so that we can speak life into some dead situations.
Come on. And we want to shout out to our producer. And you can reach her at Vanessa Films on Instagram. She does phenomenal work. So if you need help with anything producing, hit her up and she'll get back to you as soon as possible. Again, she produces this, and if it weren't for her, we wouldn't have this.
Right.
So want to shout out and thank you to her. But again, we're here to speak life to you guys. So like my mother said, leave us a like, a share this with your aunties, your uncles, your family members, and leave us a comment. We want to hear from you guys, so that way we know how to speak life to you guys.
So remember, we are here
To inspire hearts.
and transform minds.
God bless you.